other shows we have for you to enjoy at myclassicradio.net. The Avengers was most certainly not a household name in South Africa prior to the radio series. With no national television service until 1976, the mechanism simply was not present in the country to show television programs to mass audiences. While many other countries reveled in the filmed adventures of John Steed and company, South Africa was not equipped to join in the fun. The series took Britain by storm and made a major impression in the American markets, being that greatest of rarities, a British series given a network transmission slot. However, as a filmed series, rather than a videotaped one, The Avengers was able to gain a modicum of exposure in South Africa through film rentals. Come and listen at myclassicradio.net.
Your Coca-Cola bottler presents Claudia. Claudia, based on the famous play and novels by Rose Franken. Brought to you transcribed Monday through Friday by your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. Relax, and while you're listening, refresh yourself. Have a Coke. And now, Claudia.
Can't you count yourself, Claudia?
Mama, now you've made me lose it.
Lose what, dear?
I have to begin all over again. 2 and 2 and 6 and 7 and 5 and 1.
A little softer, Claudia.
A little softer what?
Count to yourself a little softer.
Oh, was I counting out loud?
Think out loud if you like, but count to yourself.
You're not very hospitable, I must say.
Sitting at that desk adding up figures ever since dinner. What are you doing?
Figuring up my adding.
Mrs. Brown, if you will be wise, you won't ask.
I should know better, David. But when I see her sitting there chewing a pencil and wrinkling her forehead...
Oh, me, life is certainly complicated.
Certainly is, when you don't know how to add. It must be.
Will you just look at this? Well, I can't spend less money on food, and I can't spend less money on clothes, and I certainly can't spend less money on running the house, so I can't spend less money.
Yeah, nothing complicated about that.
Oh, you'd be surprised. Oh, tomorrow I have to remember to write a check out for that feed Fritz bought.
Why don't you write out the check now?
Spend all that money tonight? I should say not. Oh, David, are you going to use the car tomorrow?
Thought I might.
Oh, darn.
I was going to drive down into town because I have to see a couple of jobs on the way in.
Oh, and I have to take the baby for his checkup to Dr. Barry.
Well, can't you use the pickup?
No. Fritz has to go up to Hartford again, so he'll use it.
Use a taxi.
Have you ever tried to use a taxi out here in Eastbrook? It is easier to hitch on to the tail of a comet.
Claudia, you certainly have problems.
I certainly have. It's time we started spring cleaning, too.
Claudia, will you toss me that ball of wool?
Yeah. Here, catch mine.
Thanks, dear.
Well, while you're up, the matches, darling.
I'm not up.
Oh, you looked as if you were about to be up.
Fooled you. We have to start spring cleaning.
Yes, we heard you the first time.
Why don't you wait until spring?
Oh, because then it's spring, there are other things to do. Spring cleaning should always be done by spring.
Well, now, do you mind telling me how you know exactly when spring cleaning is going to come?
I don't.
Oh, you
That's
don't?
Another problem.
David, I don't know how she survives. Her
I
life's
hardly
chock
do.
full of promises
Chock
and
full is
problems.
right.
Very complicated, very complicated.
Laugh
indeed.
if you will, but you are not running a big house.
Neither are you. Bertha is.
Oh, thank heavens for Bertha. I want to take down the window drapes, too. Start getting the spring ones up.
We don't have spring ones, do we?
No, that makes it even more
I
complicated.
can see how it would.
Then I have to get the outside furniture ready.
Goodness me, I
And-
don't know how you're going to manage.
Oh, I do. You're going to help me.
What? Well, I refuse to take the job.
Your refusal is not accepted, Mrs. Brown.
And Claudia, while you're up, will you toss me the matches?
I'm still not up, David.
Oh, so you're not.
Listen, why don't you get up?
Shakespeare is purring on my foot.
Oh, I see. You wouldn't disturb him, of course, would you? All of a sudden, you think of the cat. Poor little Shakespeare, a mere excuse.
You ought to be glad he's that much.
And that's something else. I ought to take the dogs to the vet
Why should you do that? What for?
for a checkup.
Oh.
Listen, maybe tomorrow when I take the baby to Dr. Barry, I'll take the dogs, too.
Dr. Barry is not a vet.
Well, dogs are like people. Say, maybe a vet can take care of babies as well as dogs. Maybe we ought to switch to a vet.
Do you know that is my grandson that you're talking about?
Well, certainly make it less complicated. Now, shut up, everybody. I'm going back to my figuring.
David, did you hear her to tell us to shut up?
I'm not complaining, Mrs. Brown. Just so she shuts up herself.
2 and 2 and 4 and 6 and... To make matters worst of all, we have to go to Nancy Riddle's to dinner tomorrow night.
Well, that's in the evening. You can't do any of these things in the evening, so what's the difference?
Only I have to wash my hair.
Oh, what a tragedy.
Well, I can see there's no point in talking to you at all.
Well, as far as about going to Nancy Riddle's, I am full of sympathy. I don't know why Julia is forever trying to stuff Nancy Riddle down our throats.
Julia thinks Nancy'd get 2 jobs. She knows all the right people around Easton.
I'm not interested in designing air-cooled hothouses or steam-heated swimming pools, and I wish my sister-in-law would realize it once and for all.
Julia's being very sweet, so don't be ungrateful, darling. Except I wish she'd stayed in Cuba or wherever she was, so I wouldn't have to wash my hair in the middle of everything tomorrow.
Why don't you wash your hair in the shower, Claudia?
Why, Mama, thanks for the suggestion.
Well, you're welcome.
Say, when did Julia and Hartley get back?
Oh, I don't know exactly. Julia just called today to tell me about tomorrow night. She and Hartley are coming up tonight. They're staying over at Nancy Riddle's.
Oh, my poor brother.
Well, maybe he doesn't mind her and her orange hair and her servants as much as you would, darling.
Worse.
How do you know?
He has gallbladder trouble.
Poor thing. He's so big and dignified looking. You know, I'm very fond of Hartley, and Julia's a very good wife for him. She's not very healthy-like, but she's brilliant at stocks, you said.
Well, why worry about them so? They've been married over 10 years. I think you were about 9 at the time.
Well, that wasn't my fault, David. Besides, Hartley always makes me feel maternal.
Then now's the time for you to go back to your knitting.
Yep. If anything else happens in my life, I am not going to be able to manage. 2 and 2 and 4 and 6. Now that is the sort of thing I mean.
I see.
What sort of thing?
Just as I'm about to carry one, the doorbell rings.
Oh.
Always something to complicate things.
Well, do you want to carry one and I'll answer the door?
Heavens, no. I'd rather answer it than carry one any day. Who do you suppose it is?
Oh, Julia and Hartley.
No, it can't be. There for tomorrow, not tonight.
Well, open and see.
Cross your fingers, Mama. I can't let anything interfere with my schedule.
Oh,
I won't be
that's
able
a
to
nice
keep up with myself.
Hospitable attitude to have to your husband's relatives.
She gets it from me, Mother.
Well, Julia Hartley, of all people. David was right.
Isn't it dreadful coming in like this, completely unexpected?
Heavens, no, that's what family is for. Oh, it's been such a long time.
Hello, my dear. Hello.
Oh, Hartley, you know when you kiss me on both cheeks, I feel just like a French general.
Consider yourself decorated.
Come in. Oh, you have such beautiful tans, both of you. You look so healthy.
We spent months working at it. You look fine yourself, dear.
David, it's your brother and Julia.
Yeah, you don't have to shout it right here. Hello, Hartley. Julia, how are you?
Hello, my boy.
Good to see you.
You look very well, too, David.
For heaven's sake, stop cluttering up the hall. Come on in the living room.
Oh, we just dropped by to say hello. We came up to visit Nancy Riddle, and we're on our way home.
On our way home? Why, I thought you were staying over.
Change of plans. Hello, Mrs. Brown.
Oh, that's right. You know Mama, don't you?
Of course.
Claudia's right. You're looking wonderful, Mrs. Norton.
Well, look who's here. How is my favorite girl's mother?
Oh, she's fine, too. Well, I'm going up to see why that baby's so quiet. I worry more about them when they don't make a noise.
Well, let's see. Anything changed since we've been here?
Don't think so.
No, the place looks exactly the same. Only somehow it's mellowed. Your living in a house is very becoming to it, Claudia.
You hear your brother, David? Why can't you learn to say things like that to me?
No, Hartley's pregnant.
Yes, you can keep your Cuba and your Nassau and your Rio, my darling Julia. Just give me Connecticut without Nancy Riddle.
Oh.
Why? What about Nancy Riddle? I thought she was a good friend of yours, Hartley.
Oh, no, of my wife's.
Hartley's being silly. Au fond, he's very fond of Nancy.
But aren't you staying over?
Nancy was between servants, and it was impossible.
Hartley, it's not very easy to entertain between servants, even old friends like us.
I'm not criticizing the servants.
Anyway, we're on our way back to New York, and I'm not any the sadder for it.
You mean you have all your bags in your car and everything, and you have to turn around? Like a caravan and go home again?
It's not so terrible.
Well,
The house is open. We'll be perfectly comfortable at home.
And the dinner party tomorrow night is called off?
Well, postponed. And don't look so relieved, David.
Oh, did I? I didn't mean to have it show.
It showed. Someday you'll decide to stop wasting your talents, and then you won't feel the right people are so wrong. Well, now that we have seen you, which has been most delightful, since we have to go all the way back to New York, we'd better be on our way, don't you think?
Well, yes, I guess we better head.
but you're not going all the way back to New York.
Well...
Oh, yes, we are, Hartley.
But you can't just drop in on your relatives and walk out all in the same breath.
Darling, we can't stay any longer. We won't get back to New York before 10 o'clock as it is, and by the time we get to bed and everything... No, we've got to get going. Besides, we just stopped by to say hello.
Julia, it's all settled. You're staying the night.
No, we're not. It's sweet of you to ask, but really, we are not staying.
We stopped by to say hello, and it is sweet of you to ask, and we are not going to be inveigled.
Oh, come on.
Well, don't you want to stay overnight?
Well, we'd like to very much.
Good. Then it's settled.
It's not settled, Claudia.
I said it's settled, Julia. You can't come and leave without seeing the baby and the cow and Fritz and Bertha. They'll all be terribly offended.
Yes, especially the cow.
You've worked your way all the way up here, and you're going to stay. Be a waste if you didn't.
Claudia, you've always been a very convincing woman.
You're telling me.
But, Claudia, it's such a nuisance.
For whom?
Well, for you.
Well, it'd be worse for you. You packed your bags, and if you don't stay overnight, you'll have to go home and unpack them. Well, I'd be wild. But at least this way you didn't pack them for nothing.
Now, there's logic there.
But you can't suddenly put 2 people up for the night.
And why not?
Well, because you already have a house full. There's you and David and the baby and Mrs. Brown.
4 people are not a house full, Julia.
But 6 are.
It's very simple, Julia.
Well, I'll wager you haven't even got enough room.
Well, then we'll arrange it. Now, let me see. Mama has the room with the 1 bed in it, so she stays where she is. The baby's in the nursery, so you'll take our room, Julia.
I will not take your room.
Certainly will. David and I'll sleep in the study. It opens up. The couch, I mean. How's that, David?
Oh, it's fine by me.
But it's going to be so complicated for you, Claudia.
Nonsense. There's nothing complicated about anything, Julia, except in the head. You're staying, and we're delighted. I hope you are, too.
Well, it's all beyond me. To look at you, Claudia, one would think you had nothing to do but put up with surprise visitors. I don't know anybody else who could invite 2 people to stay overnight with such equanimity. I couldn't.
Well, that's because my life is so simple.
Did you say that your life is simple?
Yes, of course.
But before Julia and Hartley came, you were complaining about how complicated it was.
Well, that's another reason I'm so glad they came, darling. Because the more complicated life is, the simpler it is. Isn't it, David?
Simple Simon met a pieman going to the fair.
This broadcast of Claudia was supervised and directed by William Brown Maloney. As you step into the lobby of your favorite movie theater, you're likely to see a familiar red cooler or counter bearing the suggestion, "Pause and refresh. Have a Coke." It's pleasant to be able to have a delicious ice-cold Coca-Cola right there before or after the show. Every day, Monday through Friday, Claudia comes to you transcribed with the best wishes of your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. So listen again tomorrow at the same time. And now this is Joe King saying au revoir. And remember, whoever you are, whatever you do, wherever you may be, when you think of refreshment, think of Coca-Cola. For Coca-Cola makes any pause the pause that refreshes. And ice-cold Coca-Cola is everywhere.
Okay, so we have the car payment, the rent, utilities,
and the repair bill.
What should we do?
I know. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, we could have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.